Welcome back. This tutorial is part of the import range series. If you want to go back to the start, there should be a link in this video in the top right maybe, and then there's also links to the original video in the description below. Let's get cracking. In this tutorial, we are going to cover how to use VLOOKUP with import range in Google Sheets. Right now I have two example sheets. So this is a sales page, and over to the right here, I'm just holding shift and using the mouse wheel to get across. I have a list of rep IDs, and I want to add the name and email of each of the rep IDs so our sales manager can see the name and the email of the person who collected these sales. Now, fortunately for me, I have a list of members in my sales team, which are in this sheet here, sales team sheet. Now, if you want to play along, there's a link in the description below that will get you to this import range folder. All you need to do is select the files, right click and make a copy, and you have your very own copy to play along. Okay, so how do we do this? First things first, we have a rep name and a rep email. Let's go back over to our sales team and see where our rep name is. Okay, so the name of the representatives is in column C and the email is in column B. You can see here that we have a list of IDs and they seem to be in order from smallest to highest in column A. For us, we have this list of rep IDs in column M here. So that's going to make things a little bit easier. Now, there's two approaches to using VLOOKUP with import range. One I thought was going to be slower than the other, but it turns out both are about the same. So we'll go through both. If you want to skip to one or the other, there are some chapter points in the description below if you want to skip to them, or you can follow along and learn about both approaches because both may be useful to you. So let's work on the first approach. Now, the first approach is probably the easiest one because it will help lead you into the next approach anyway as we make a more compound formula. So what we're going to do is first create a new Google Sheet tab. So I'm going to go down to the bottom left here and click on Add Sheet. And I'm going to double click the Sheet 6 and type in Team Import. Okay. From here, I'm going to import the sales team and just the range that I want. So if you've been playing along, import range should be pretty familiar to you now. So we're just going to type in equals, import range. And we need the spreadsheet URL, which is going to be our sales team one. I'm just going to be convenient and select from over here. You can include everything, but that's okay. We'll keep it as is. Now let's head back to our sales page. Now we're going to put this between two double quotation marks. So quotation mark, I'm going to go Control Shift V just to paste the values, and then double quotation mark again, then comma. And now we need the sheet and range that we want to include. So open up our quotation marks again. Let's head back over to our sales team. So this is in team here. And we don't really need the header, we just need the values. So it's basically going to be from A2 all the way across to C. And we need to type in team. So we'll go team, exclamation mark, A2, colon C. We'll keep that open just in case we have more sales team members come on board. We'll close that double quotation mark and close our brackets, and that's our import range. So I'll hit enter. Now you may have a little warning up in the top right hand corner here. Let's click on it and allow access so you can import the range. But for us, we've done this just once before, so it's all fine. So I'm going to just select this and expand these out so it's a bit tidier. So I'm going to hold shift down and click on column C. Then I'm just going to double click up here. And now it looks neat and pretty, which doesn't really matter because we're not going to show this for our viewers and editors anyway. Okay, now that we've imported our range, all we need to do now is use VLOOKUP. So let's go over to our rep name here. So first things first, we need to put in an equal sign here. And we can type in VLOOKUP and open up our brackets. And our search key is the key that we're going to search to find the other value. So this is our rep ID. So we're going to click on that and then comma. And the range is going to be in our team imports here, and we're going to select all the way across, and let's just get rid of that number so it keeps it open, so it'll go all the way down to the bottom, and then comma, and then the index. So the index is basically where from the start of our little selection from column A across do we want to show. Our index here, let's go back to our sales page. We can't really see it here, but what we want is the rep's name. So let's go back. Our index is the rep's name, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be 3 here. We know the order is sorted, so we're going to type in true. And let's hit enter and hope everything works. Cool. So that's going to be good, but if we drag this down a little bit more, these values are going to change and it might cause some errors in future. So what I'll do is I'll click on this range here and we'll just hit F4 to lock it in. And now this range won't change as you drag it down. It'll stay static instead of dynamic. Okay, let's hit tab to get out of that. Next thing we want to do is find the email of the person with this rep ID. So same thing again, bit of repetition is always good to practice. So we'll do VLOOKUP. Let's go over to our M column to get the rep ID. And that's our reference. And now our range, we'll go back to team import. And this time around, we only need up to column B because we're looking for the email and not just the name. So I'm going to select this A1 across here, get rid of the 1 to keep it open, hit comma. So the index that we want to display is the second one in our range. So it's going to be from our ID range and then our email range. It's going to be 2. And then yes, it's in order. So we're going to say true and close our brackets and hit enter. Okay, so now we've got the name of the rep name and the rep email of the person. Now don't forget we need to lock these ranges in. So I've clicked on here, hit F4 to lock it in with the dollar signs, hit tab to go out. I'm going to select N2, hold shift down to O2, and then I'm just going to double click this little box here. And that'll drag it all the way down to the bottom, entering everyone's name. Cool, all you need to do now is to hide this sheet. So we can right click the sheet and select hide. Okay, so that's one approach. Now there is another approach where we can actually incorporate the input range into the VLOOKUP in each cell. Now, I tested this out as much as I can, and there doesn't seem to be too much difference in performance by adding the input range into the VLOOKUP. I thought it might have bogged things down, but it doesn't look like it. So Google must be doing something really amazing to cache things so we can do silly stuff like this. Okay, let's get cracking. So let's go ahead and delete these cells. So I'm going to hold shift down, go across one with my right arrow, then hold control shift and down arrow to get all the way down to the bottom, hit delete, and then arrow up to the top and down one. So I'm back in N2. Let's find our hidden team import sheet here, and let's go ahead and delete that. So I'm just going to use the drop down arrow here and select delete and hit OK. All right, so we're ready to get cracking. Okay, so first we're going to encapsulate an input range inside our VLOOKUP. So let's go equals VLOOKUP. And our search key is still going to be our rep ID. And now our range is going to be our import range. So I'll go import range and get our spreadsheet URL. And that goes in double quotation marks. And then we need our, it's going to be team A2 to C. So double quotation marks again, team, exclamation mark, A2 to C. Now you don't have to do any F4 action here when we drag it down because it's in double quotation marks. It's going to stay static for us. That's a positive. Okay, so now we've got our import range sorted out. Let's close the brackets of our import range, hit comma, get our index. Now our first index is going to be, so we're referencing here is going to be 3 across, 1, 2, 3, so the name be 3. And then it is still in alphabetical order. We're going to type true. And close our brackets. Hit enter, make sure we didn't mess anything up. And now we have our name. Okay, so then to get our rep email, it's just as easy. So all we need to do is select this formula, click on the end here, Control A to select all, Control C to copy, tab across into O2, and then go up into the formula bar and hit Control V to paste. All right, so now this will give us our name. And if we remember back over here, our sales team email is in column B. So that's the second one across instead of the third one now. So all we need to do is change this 3 to 2 and we're done. Cool. Same thing again now. To get everything down to the bottom, we can hold shift down, select over to O2 and then double click this little box down. Then as you can see, everything is really quickly updated all the way down to the bottom. So cool, so that's gone all the way down to the bottom of our current product range. But as you can imagine, this sheet is probably going to be quite live and we'll have more and more of these products popping up down the bottom here. Unfortunately, as we go down, there is no formula for this. Now, we could just click this range here. So we've got N779 to O779 and drag it down. But have a look at what happens. We've got these NAs that are popping up, and that's probably a bit messy for us. We don't want to see these NAs. We want to make this nice and clear and empty. So I'm going to hold shift down and delete those again. And let's go back up to the top of our range and go up to this N2 and see if we can make a formula that'll fix things up a bit more. Now, there's two approaches that we can use here to continue the formulas down past our rep IDs without getting that NA. The easiest one is just to simply type in if NA and open up the brackets here and close our brackets here. So this basically says, if an NA occurs, don't do anything, leave it blank. So there might be instances that occur that you want to see an NA, for example, if you don't actually have that sales rep on your list anymore. So this time around, we're going to use an if statement. So I'm going to say if, open up their brackets, M2, so that's that rep ID column, is equal to empty, so an empty array, then display an empty array. Otherwise, do this VLOOKUP statement. We need to encapsulate that, so we'll put another brackets down the end of the formula and hit tab. So let's go ahead and delete these again. So I've selected the crest, hold shift down, and then I'm going to hold control shift down, arrow to the bottom, and hit delete, and arrow to get back up to the top. So this time around, let's just double click to get them down to the bottom, and I'm going to hold shift down to get down to there. And then when we drag both these formulas down, you'll see that they're empty. But if we put in another formula here, let's put it down here for example, you can see that they have appeared. Now if I put in a rep ID that's wrong, for example, this should be wrong, hit enter, you can see now in our rep name this won't appear because we're using the if NA, but in our rep email it will come up as an NA because we've said if it's empty, do nothing, but if there is something going on here, use this formula. So it's showing us that this is a faulty rep name. Cool. This is a pretty tidy approach. We've automated our sheet pretty well, but we can probably take this step further. So let's go back up to the top here. I'm just going to delete these ranges here, hold shift down arrow to get all the way to the bottom and just delete out those formulas. Now they're pretty easy to manage, but if we have to make a change, we're going to have to go and click this, hold shift down, drag it all the way down to the bottom and update it again. What we can do is just put one big formula in the top of each of these columns and update that one if we need to make an update. And we can do this with the array formula function. So what we're going to do is encapsulate this formula in our array formula. So an array formula allows you to duplicate this formula down a range of rows or columns. If I put in an array formula around this and change our reference here to M2 to M2 colon M, then that entire range will be updated. So let's give it a go. So we'll go array formula and open up our brackets and we'll close those brackets so it's all encapsulated. And this time around we're going to go M2 colon M, capital M, and hit enter. See what happens. So as you can see, we've got our big formula here, but there's no other formulas all the way down here. And we can drag this all the way down to the bottom, and you can see down here the formula will work if we're duplicating it, and you can see it updates for us easily. So now we've just got one formula for that column that we have to handle instead of hundreds of formulas all the way down. It makes management of this column much easier. All right, again, we can do the same with this formula. So we'll go over here, good practice to repeat. So array, open up our column, and we need to encapsulate this with a brace. And then what do we do here? We go from M2 to M with our if statement, but we'll also have to do the same for this VLOOKUP. So we'll go M here as well and hit enter. And now you can see all the way down that it's been updated. Now we just have two cells that we can update. Now you can take this one step further and combine both these formulas into one giant formula, and I do have that in the written tutorial, so click on the link if you want to see that. But to be honest, I'm happy keeping my formulas per column because they're easier to maintain and to look at a glance. Okay, so that's it for how to use VLOOKUP in import range. In the next tutorial in this series, we're going to talk about how to use the query function and the filter function import range. If you want to get a notification when that next tutorial comes up, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit that like button. Until next time.